Expectations and a sense of hope have never been higher in contemporary India than now. The country believes it finally has a government which has a vision of prosperous India, and that vision includes a Pakka house for every Indian by the year 2022. Not much of a surprise then, is it, that the real estate BSE index, that's a BSE Realty, surged thrice as much as the broader BSE index in the month of June. To provide a Pakka roof over every Indian's head will mean massive investments in the housing sector, and perhaps along with that, a revival of the sluggish real estate sector. Easier said than done though. The sector faces multiple challenges, and right before the first budget of the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, the industry is ready with its long list of demands. Can the Finance Minister fulfill a few, if not all of them? How many of these expectations are realistic, which are not? Let's thrash all of that out and get to that one big answer. What will it take for the Pakka House for All dream to come true? My panel today: Anuj Puri, Chairman and Country Head, JLL India; Lalit Kumar Jain, CMT Kumar Urban Development Limited and Chairman, CREDAI; Rajiv Talwar, Group ED DLF; Mohit Goyal, CEO Omax Limited; Gaurav Karnik, Tax Partner Real Estate Practice EY; and Raj Minda, Corporate Chairman, RMZ Corp from Bangalore. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. I think the very first big question is, what should one be focusing on? What should the FM be focusing on? Rajiv Talwar, voice of the industry, tell me, is a broader recovery a far more critical thing than industry-specific SOPs today?
I think both. Manisha, just to let everyone know that if there are going to be houses for every Indian with a Pakka roof over his head, the estimated shortage by the Ministry of Urban Development is 30 million units. I take that each unit will be about 400 to 500 square feet. And if you go high-rise, which will be inevitable in cities existing or the 100 new cities that are planned, then the rough area to be made would be about 1,000 units if we take it, give and take some. Then 30 million units translates itself into 30 billion square feet to be made. If 30 billion square feet have to be constructed in the next 8 years, and 2,000 rupees per square foot is the rough cost as per PWD, then we are looking at an investment of 60 trillion rupees, which is roughly equivalent to $1 trillion. I think that kind of boost to the economy is a huge upside, and therefore now with the big picture and 38 or 35% of this investment going into tax revenue, I think let's look at the small steps which need to be taken for the success of this industry and for the success of the dream that yes, if India has managed to provide clothes and food to all, then why not a house to everyone, which is not only a great measure of security but also changes the psyche of every human being.
Fair enough. So we'll come to what is needed exactly to get the ball rolling. How do you get that $1 trillion inside and also, of course, boost the economy? Anuj Puri, do you think that this government finally recognizes that, you start or give an impetus to both housing and construction, and that itself could be a huge booster for economic growth and revival? Or do you think this is still not something that the government has understood? At least in India so far, we've not had that kind of linkage being understood by the government.
So Manisha, first of all, going back to the first question that you asked Rajiv, and in support of what Rajiv said, I would add that the broader economy recovery is a must. Real estate really doesn't have its own two legs. It piggybacks on the economy. If the economy is not going to progress, we guys are not going to progress. The jobs have to be created. There has to be a demand for housing that gets created with those jobs, retail, manufacturing, office space requirements. So all that is required. So I do believe is that with the new government, which is, a lot more stronger, stable, business friendly, they will be able to move the economy, above 5.5%. And, in sort of the next 12, 18, 24 months, we'll be moving to about 6.5%, because that, to my mind, is a crucial factor for anything to come in the real estate. The second is really getting into the subsection of real estate, and it's a stated manifesto by the new government to say that as India completes 75 years of independence by 2022, we want housing for all. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Is it a Herculean task? Huge amount of Herculean task. Not only from the perspective of financial, and Rajiv is absolutely correct, $1 trillion. How do you get $1 trillion into this economy? Is the government prepared? Do they understand it? I think there is an indication that yes, they are understanding it. Clearly, Gujarat as a state has been able to deliver it. Would they be able to bring in the right policies? It remains to be seen. Is there going to be a harmonious dialogue between the developers and the government? That is a must. And Manisha, on your shows again and again, I've got Lalitji with me on my right-hand side. Every time they've said is our biggest challenge is the approval process. And I'm sure again in your show, that will be the first thing that will come up. Second is how do you provide the tax swaps? I don't think so the government is going to provide land free to the developers to say that this is for affordable housing. But what can you do in providing tax swaps? How can you bring down the interest rates on financing? How can you bring down home loan rates? How can you liberalize FDI for affordable housing? How can you take it as an industry status? How can you bring in the REITs so that a lot of the money that is stuck in commercial properties is liquidated and monetized, and then you can bring that into the real estate sector? I'm sure government quarters are thinking, and on 10th of July, I do hope that there is some reflection that comes out on the real estate sector, because I can clearly tell you in the last 3 or 4 budgets, the word real estate hasn't been uttered at all. So we've been completely ignored, and I do hope this time the government recognizes that this is an integral part of the economy and we need to give that the requisite push that it requires. But at this moment in time, clearly, the government's push will be required to make sure that the momentum on the real estate picks up.
Absolutely. So let's get to that industry status to affordable housing. I mean, I know that the industry or the sector, Lalitji, has been asking for industry status for the entire sector. I think that's a bit far-fetched, won't you agree? Should the start be made by and immediately on 10th July by giving an industry status to affordable housing, which is essentially means easier access to bank borrowings, ECBs, tax incentives, all of that Anuj has already laid out?
Well, Manisha, most important that I would like to add to what Anuj and Mr. Talwar has said. See, housing doesn't have to wait for economy to grow. Housing will drive economy. So, if you see, NDA government in 1998 began with housing industry. It kick-started growth. It kick-started the core sector like steel, cement, etc. And then we grew to double digit. Now, same, we don't have to reinvent, we have to just relive. I think NDA government realizes this. The home loan rates will have to come down to begin with. Now, industry status or infrastructure status. See, RBI has been very unfair to this segment. Housing sector has been harmed by either bias, you may say, or ignorance. According to me, because we are not funded well and not funded at lower rate, we have to depend on market, on NBFCs or HNIs, and we borrow at higher rate. Therefore, housing is costlier. Housing projects get delayed because there is no funding, there is paucity of fund. So, if you see what I expect from Finance Minister, and I think it is not far-fetched, infrastructure status is a must. Also, I feel that we should not
for the entire industry or just affordable housing. These are two very, very different topics of discussion.
Entire industry.
Okay.
Entire industry. See, it is very ridiculous approach that in affordable housing has a different status. Yes, I do say that low-income housing, that is houses below 10 lakh rupee, should get priority status, not infrastructure status. Entire housing. Now, why we people segregate commercial from residential housing? If there is no commercial development, how do you generate white-collar jobs in urban areas?
Okay, Lalit ji, hold your thought there. I get your point. So you're saying that, look, the entire sector has a potential of reviving the economy, and the NDA government has done that. They did allow 81B, and under that section there was some leeway for construction between 2000 and 2008 which were made tax-free. Raj Minda come in here. So what I'm hearing is both the developers saying that, look, you just focus on housing, you focus on giving industry status, ease up the financing, and guess what? The entire economy and all the ancillary industries will push growth forward. Anuj Puri says you need to kickstart the economy before any miracle will happen. Where do you stand on this?
I think I completely agree with all what has been said so far. The point I'm trying to also add here is we'll have to see that we'll run short on materials and labor very rapidly. Because even at the current position, there's always a shortage of materials. The prices of most of the materials are being pushed up. I think we'll have to allow imports to help this whole business to move forward. Otherwise, what will happen is the costs of materials are going to keep shooting up, as they've been seeing even post this new government taking over. And this challenge is going to continue if the economy gets on the track as promised by the government, which I hope it does happen. And then we'll get scuttled again with shortage of material and labor. So I think keeping that in mind, other than the tax swaps everybody just spoke about, which is obviously essential for the developers to be motivated to and self-induced to take the lead and provide the housing, which is a much need of the hour. And that's how they'll do it. I mean, expecting the government to do it is a complete waste of time. Rather that each developer is given enough of a tax incentive so that they feel motivated enough to create this low-income group housing and providing shelter for all. I mean, that's the view I think I would like to add a little dimension which is missed out so far.
Mohit, do you think developers will get into the sector, affordable housing? So far, they've just stayed away from there. So I do have developers like Poddar who have come around and said, even in the current situation and scenario, it is possible to do affordable housing. So I don't know why certain sections of developers or large number of developers say, look, it is impossible to do affordable housing in the present scenario. Where do you stand on this?
So first of all, I would like to say right now we're talking about what industry wants. I just want to say what industry wants is equal to what customer wants. What we are working here is to get the cost of the houses low so that the customers can come and buy in. And absolutely, I mean, affordability is there and a lot of developers are working in this affordable sector. I mean, a lot of companies who are working in tier 2, tier 3 cities, and they're making townships, and the unit over there they're selling is around 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs, which is affordable for those people staying there. So looking at something which is doable, see, infrastructure status, everybody is talking that it should be given to the whole industry. If it is given to the whole real estate sector, the fund is limited to the country right now. So PM has to decide what fund where to be given.
I mean, he's being a little bit more practical on his
absolutely.
list
So
of
I'm just
demands.
I'm just going to talk about what can be done. So I think the first priority for the PM should be to give infrastructure status to the affordable housing, because that is the need for the country. I mean, I really believe that the citizen of this country should get the Pakka house. 2022 is possible by doing a lot of things.
But okay, so here's back to one question. If it does happen, because that's probably the most likely thing that we might hear in the budget along with REITs, we'll come to that. Would you then be more incentivized to take out a truly affordable housing project?
See, today also we are doing a lot of affordable housing projects, but of course, once the infrastructure status is given to the affordable sector, particularly affordable sector.
You pass on the benefits, can you bring down the prices down?
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Let's hold the thought there. Gaurav, you've been listening to all sides of this story. Of course, both of them have to go hand in hand. So some of it has to come directly to the sector, and then there has to be a larger boost on fiscal consolidation and investment kick-off in the economy. But tell us, what is critical today? I mean, that vision of 2022, $1 trillion ain't going to come that easily. Developers aren't going to jump into the fray just because you have an industry or an infrastructure status. So what do you think the FM will do this budget?
So I think, if you look at the economy has to grow first. Real estate, infrastructure and manufacturing. I think these are the three thrust areas where the government has to focus. They all are intertwined with each other. Real estate has, maximum forward and backward linkages. It gives jobs, etc. But you need the other two sectors to also pick up. So I think his thrust will be on all three. And secondly, if you look at the real estate sector, clearly there have not been too many SOPs in the past. So there should be some sort of a tax holiday on the affordable housing.
You're expecting that?
There should be some
If
clarity.
it's a vision of 2022, why will it not come? If it doesn't come now, then that vision ain't going to happen in 8 years.
And it's there in some form already. It's some sort of clarifications which are required, because they already have an incentive on capital expenditure. But today, housing is stock in trade, so you don't get the benefit. There's a lot of indirect taxes, service tax, VAT, which is being levied, which makes it really unaffordable. So that's another issue. So that should also be clarified. And the third part, I need to clarify that one of the ways it could be done is through GST. If we include real estate sector in GST, then you definitely can get,
You think that's a possibility?
There's a clear possibility. If the industry is in favor of it, I think the FM can really look at it very seriously.
All right, I'm sure that the ministry is working overtime, but one of the other things which I think was mentioned by Anuj and also seconded by Gaurav Karnik here, introduction of REITs. Now, we do know that the government is working to finalize rules that will govern the trusts as early as next month. At least that's the news. That's what the news is. The finance ministry now in the budget is expected to clarify tax rules for REITs. And that hope is that just like mutual funds, REITs will also get a tax pass-through, exempting them from both corporate and dividend tax. We'll come back and take the topic of REITs and what it can do to unlock value of real estate assets and actually infuse the much-needed liquidity